Right, good afternoon everyone. It's a Sunday the 4th of May, the day after the election, and it looks like we've got the communists in, i.e. Communists with lipstick on being the Labor Party, especially, they've had a landslide win in the lower house. We'll see about the upper house, we'll see about the Senate. The Senate we won't know for a few days. Hopefully we'll get Gerard Rennick into the Senate. Now, a few people have been asking me what the scenario is, and I'd just like to advise people to please go on George Christensen's website or his blog or George Christensen's Facebook page, and he's done a very good summary, because George used to be the parliamentary whip in Canberra, and he's quite a good journalist, and he's a truth warrior, no question about that. I think he lives now in Mackay, I think. Anyway, George's summary is pretty close to the truth. In fact, I think it is spot on, and it's, to a degree, it's what I've predicted, but my timing was out a little bit, and I'll get into that in a second. Number one, why did Australia vote for the commies, i.e. the Communist Party, i.e. anything that's anti-Christian, anything that's woke, anything that's going to plunge Australia further in debt? Is obviously Labor and the Greens, although I believe the Greens in Queensland lost seats to Labor, which is probably between the devil and the deep blue sea. Definitely the Greens is the worst on the planet, but Labor's right beside them, in bed with them. So this is the reason. Right, number one, Dutton couldn't lead, as I've said in all my videos, Dutton couldn't lead a horse to water. So there were two factors with Dutton. Number one, he was agreeing with Labor most of the time through climate change, the green scam agenda, the Paris Accords, the welcome to country, all this sort of stuff. Dutton basically became Labor light. Now, as George Christensen says, and rightly so in his commentary, good on you, George, you're a very smart man. You should be run for the next election, I reckon. And I've always seen George back in power, as probably a senator would be better. I reckon George run for a senator next election, maybe join Gerard Rennick. I think that's the best way to go. So Dutton had the knives out to get rid of him by the woke faction in the Liberal Party. Now the Liberal Party is now basically going to the bottom. Basically it's on fire. Basically, I mean, in a negative sense, it's on fire and the ship is sinking. You see, whatever happens when you go from a Conservative Party to try and pretend you're woke, you're going to go down. Now, the Liberal Party's gone, finished as far as I'm concerned. The resurrection of the Liberal Party will happen maybe, but it won't be happening under any leaders like Dutton. It'll be, and I've said this probably about 2 years ago, the real leader of the Liberal Party will emerge, and that is Andrew Hastie, the ex-SAS major in Western Australia. He will emerge as a leader of the Liberal Party, because they're finished. If they don't get someone on board that's got a bit of guts and follows what I call the Trump super wave, they're gone. So where to from here? Okay, my prediction was it would be a hung parliament, and that Gerard Rennick would get up, and a lot of Gerard's troops in the Senate and in the lower house would get into power. Unfortunately, by the look of it, my timing's out, but the vision remains the same. So I've had a few people tell me to repent. Trouble is, folks, when you see the vision on stuff, the thing is, to me it seems like tomorrow it's going to happen. right? And I just remind people, and I say this all the time, it might take a little while for it to happen, but the vision remains the same. So my vision remained exactly the same. What I saw was just the timing was out, that's all, and I'll explain that in a second. What I saw was well, it was obviously not this election, but it must be the next election, 2028, goes to a hung parliament, and Gerard Rennick's party, People First, gains tremendous ground and becomes a wedge into the system. And that wedge winds up, I believe, forming government anyway, with a coalition of independents. Now, and also I'd like to see, I know Bob Katter got across the line, but honestly I see, and I know the Katter family from years ago, and I'd like to see Bob as a senator actually. I mean, you know, it's great him in the lower house and all the rest of it, but he's been around long enough to be, he's a statesman. Maybe his son could be in the lower house, but I'd see Bob, honestly Bob, I'd love you to run for the Senate next election, quite frankly, and so we can get some real experience into the Senate. You know, people who know Australia back to front and upside down, and represent, of course, North Queensland, the area of massive area of Kennedy, including Mount Isa and all that area around there, Charters Towers. I'm from Innisfail originally, so that's my particular area. Now, going into the depth of this election, it was Dutton who lost the election. You know, had he aligned his policies with Donald Trump in the USA, he would have done a hell of a lot better. But unfortunately, he wasn't the man for the time, and as George Christensen says, definitely he's got, he had, you know, the backstabbers. The knives are out to get rid of Dutton anyhow from the Liberal Party, because they're run by the woke faction. So that's all we need to say about that. Go woke and you're going to go broke and you're going to go down. So the Liberal Party's in serious reconstruction phase. They're down in flames. They've got to put the fire out in the ship, and that's going to take at least 3 years. Okay, now, I'm waiting on the Senate results. I still believe that Senator Rennick will get in. I still believe that Madison King will get in. Madison just recently on her Facebook said that she's going to start a podcast. It's not over yet till the fat lady sings, so to speak. Not that Madison's a fat lady, she's quite an attractive young girl, but she's got more than that. She's got brains. She's got very smart. And so I'm all for Madison starting her podcast and hammer it for the next 3 years with the real media rather than all the BS media that we've got, the equivalent of CNN and our ABC and all this. So we're better off running like a Joe Rogan type podcast and things like that actually reflect the reality, the truth, rather than all the BS and the propaganda, I call it. Okay, so where to from here? Well, welcome to the communist version of Australia. We are going to wind up in serious debt in 3 years' time. You know, Labor's just been given a mandate to run the Welcome to Country, to run all the LGBTQ agendas in schools, to ramp up the abortion agenda, to you know, basically just run rampant. And so that will plunge Australia into serious debt. I mean, we're in $1 trillion in debt now. That'll probably triple that by the time Labor's finished with the wrecking ball that'll go through the economy. And you've got Liberals to blame for that to a degree, because they didn't present, it was like, this election was like watching paint dry. So boring, just no fire in anything. So again, I just read George Christensen's summary of both why Liberal actually lost the unlosable election, and why Dutton got pulled back on being a stronger leader. Not that I ever saw Dutton really doing anything. Quite frankly, I didn't. I'm not talking about Dutton personally. I don't know him that well. But I never saw him as a leader of the Liberal Party, and also I never really saw him going anywhere. I saw him being removed very quickly, and it looks like that's come to pass. So now, the future. This is where we're at. Okay. Obviously, we've got to march forward another 3 years, and it's going to be tough going for everyone. And I hope you like your cup of coffee and, you know, the no gap on Medicare, which was always there anyhow. If your doctor wants to, don't charge you a gap, they don't have to, right? So, you know, Albo was offering you nothing. So anyway, as usual, people believe it and think they're going to change. And I'm still waiting for the $300 off our electricity bill that not Dutton, but Albo promised. It still didn't come, although we got subsidies, but you're paying those subsidies out of tax. So it's like robbing Peter by paying, or robbing Paul by paying it with Peter. It's just ridiculous. Same old story. Anyway, that's history now. And now, where do we go on from here? Well, I'm having a look at the Senate results, so hopefully we get Senator Rennick back into the Senate. And then I'd imagine what his agenda is, I'm pretty certain it'll be this agenda. It will then be to build up People First as a third alternative in this country that's far separate, with solutions to the problems and the whole attitude far separate from even the Liberals and, of course, Labor, the Communists. And hopefully Greens will be completely wiped out in the next 3 years, even if Labor takes the seats, who cares, as long as we get rid of the Greens. And Adam Bandit, the Bandit, now I call him the Ferret. So anyway, yeah, so we just got to build this is phase one, and I've said this was phase one from all my broadcasts. I said this is only phase one, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all, it's not over yet. I didn't think we'd have to go for another 3 years, but it looks like it, unless there's going to be a war in the South China Sea or something or whatever. I thought Trump would come here this year. No way is he going to come here with a Labor government in charge. You know, they hate his guts. And, you know, that's so he won't come anywhere near Australia until we have a Conservative government taking power, and then that will be able to parallel our policies with the Trump policies. Now, what's going to happen in the US is pretty obvious to me. The stock markets are turning around now. Trump's dismantling globalism. He's rebuilding the American economy. And the golden era of the USA is unfolding before your very eyes. And I mean, some people can't see that now, but you know, I've got a, you know, not a license, but I trade the stock market, and I've been trained in that in the last couple of years, and I can see all that on the stock market. S&P 500 is going up, you know, the Dow, you know, all the stocks are starting to move forward now. So that little hiccup when he announced the so-called tariffs, and then people say, tariffs, you know, tariffs in Australia. Well, Australia's got tariffs already. The government here imposes tariffs. Tariffs is another name for taxes. So you've got provisional tax. You've got tax on your fuel excise tax. You've got tax sales tax. You've got GST. God, we're the most taxed country in the world. And then when they're not taxing you, they're tricking you into the new home buyers bribe, where basically the you know, the deficits they've had in the various economies, be it Liberal or Labor, they've hidden that in housing inflation. And of course, Labor's policy of open borders has now been given a mandate. So, you know, you'll be expecting much more immigration from the Middle East and all God-forsaken places. It'll be open slather under Labor. So, you know, that's what you're in for, folks, over the next 3 years. So it's going to go from here to the bottom. You're going to go to the bottom, and it'll have to bounce. Just like the stock market, you're going to have to bounce off the bottom. Now, I've got nothing against multiculturalism as such, but I'll just tell you this story. You know, I got a cab, a Uber, and I'm not really into the Ubers, but I got a cab, Uber, into a meeting I had the other night. And a nice guy, it was, you know, with the Ubers, there's multicultural people driving the cab. But this guy that was driving the cab, he couldn't speak a word of English. Now, isn't that a bit concerning? If, you know, you can imagine me going to China driving a cab and couldn't speak any Chinese. Think about it. So part of the prerequisite on anyone coming to Australia should be able to speak English. Not having a go at the guy, but I just thought to myself, you know what? You couldn't get away with this in another country. You imagine going to an Arab nation and then driving cabs there and you couldn't even speak Arabic. You know, you wouldn't get a job doing that there, right? But in Australia, good old Australia, you might, you know, as long as you got a driver, how do you get a driver's license without speaking English? You tell me. How can you even read the test if you can't even speak the language? It's just unreal. Anyway, you're going to get more of that now. And Middle East, you're going to get all those, you know, all that stuff from the Middle East. You're just going to get an open border with it now because you've voted for it. Now, you can't really blame the voters, as George Christensen says in his commentary. You can't blame the voters. The reason is the blame lies seriously at the foot of the Liberal Party for this election. You lost it, you're burning, and you're down in flames, and it's your fault, really. The average Joe Bloggs is out there just trying to make a quid and make ends meet, and you've just, you know, the Labor campaign sounded better from that perspective for the pensioners and, you know, the Medicare scare and all that rest of that stuff. Okay, that's it for now, and, you know, so what we're in for a race to the bottom over the next 3 years. However, the upside is this, that Trump's golden era will appear over the next 6 months, and people will be all watching the success the United States is having. And in the meantime, Nigel Farage is well on the way to become the Prime Minister of the UK. He's got Reform Australia, Reform UK party that's just kicking butt over there. It's a third alternative. It's the real Conservative Party. The Conservatives over there, same as the Liberals here, they're like copycats. They go down the woke agenda, and so the Conservatives in the UK have basically lost face with the people. And I listened to a couple of little podcasts about before, so, you know, it's all the people's fault because you voted them in. Not really. The average person out there doesn't know much about politics. The average person out there is just looking at it and say, okay, what's in it for me? They're looking at what's in it for them. Is there tax relief? Is the inflation rate going to come down? Am I going to be able to buy a house as a young family? Well, under Labor, none of that's going to happen. It's just going to get worse. Under Liberals, it wasn't going to happen either because they're hopeless. They become light Labor. So the only alternative is, I believe, and I've said this from day one, my timing was a little bit out, but certainly Gerard Rennick will build a third, a bit like the Unite UK party. It'll be People's First Party with Gerard Rennick at the helm, and it will consolidate from the ground up starting today. And you'll have good senators like, and hopefully Madison King will get in Western Australia, and maybe Dr. Neil down in Melbourne. We'll see what happens with the Senate over the next couple of days. But we're in for phase 2. Phase 1 resulted it sort of resulted worse than I thought, but it doesn't surprise me. So phase 2 is that Labor, without a shadow of a doubt, will have open borders. It'll be another Biden era, and people will realise what a big mistake they've made, giving more power to old Albo. And, you know, unfortunately, it's got to get worse before it's going to get better. So we're going to reach the bottom of the curve, 2028, and then we'll go up like the stock market. We'll go up with a different mindset, but then people will be ready for change. They obviously weren't ready for change here, but they had no opposition. That was the main thing. So that's Graham Healy over and out. I'll put this on a recorded video. And and by the way, even with Dr. Bay, you know, he did a good effort, but as I've discussed with him, you know, it's phase 2 we're in. Phase 1 is just laying the groundwork. Phase 2, we're going to be all a lot more prepared, and we will be kicking butt over the next 3 years. So have a great day, and enjoy communism over the next 3 years. It's going to be great. I reckon, you know, the deficit will probably go up to 2 or 3 billion at least, and you won't get any tax relief. And with those renewables, they'll be putting up windmills and knocking down forests all over Australia now. So won't that be great? And that'll contribute absolutely nothing to the power grid. You'll just wreck the beautiful landscape of Australia for absolutely nothing and putting the money in the pockets of multinational corporations. Welcome to the new world over the next 3 years. And globalism is going to be dismantled by Donald Trump. But in Australia, we're trying to hang on to the globalism picture. Well, it's got a short life to go. Okay, Graham Healy over and out. Have a great day. See you then.